The time entry grid is an area you're probably going to use often in TPS. So even though we have a time entry overview video here, and we have other videos all over this area, especially over here on the actions dropdown, you can see all these videos, we still thought it was a good idea to do a video specifically for the time entry grid because you're probably going to use it often and we want you to be able to come back here and just click to see this video anytime you need to. There's some info I won't cover here because it's touched on the main overview video, and we don't want this video to stretch on for too long. But basically, here with the time entry grid, you're keeping track of your time in a spreadsheet-like format. So you can see it's in list view. Over here on the left, you can see the date starts out by default as today. I can click on it and go back to a previous date if I need to. I can click on the months to change the month, or same with the year, or go back and forth between the months with these arrows. So if I realize I forgot to enter some time last Wednesday, I could just click here and start entering time on that date. This button here just allows you to do a split view where you can see the calendar over here on the left. You get that bank hours field, which I'm not going to go over bank hours because that's explained on the time entry overview video, but you have that field here along with a bunch of other information down here that was also explained in that video. To get back to the wide screen, you just click here. Here's that bank hours up here on this screen. You can see that running across here, you have kind of a ticker tape summary of information for today. You can see the total expense units, the chargeable hours, non-chargeable hours, and total amount. You also have a refresh button in case you add some time and it doesn't calculate up here. You just hit the refresh button and you should see those totals up here. As I mentioned, this down here is like a spreadsheet, and you can even widen and make the columns more narrow here. Let's go over the different columns that you see here in front of you. First, you have your checkboxes. You can check them all with this button here or uncheck them. You can check them individually if you want to, but you'll need to check on these in order to use the actions here. So if you wanted to copy that time, for example, you would click here, hit copy time, and you can see there are videos in here that explain all the different actions. But this is how you apply those actions. Then you have the three dots that open up a drop-down menu that allow you to copy time, convert to WIP, or if it was in WIP status, you can convert it back to time here. You can send an email to your client directly from in here. You can see the client inquiry from directly in here. And you can even see the client properties with that button there without leaving this screen. And with some of them, as you saw here, you have a delete option. Those would usually be the ones that are in time status still. Anything whipped wouldn't allow you to delete it without setting it back to time. Speaking of that, let's jump over to the journal column. If you see a T here, that means it's in time status. When it's in time status, you can still edit it and make changes to it. In order to bill it, you would need to change it to WIP status like this one down here. You can click on the T to change it to WIP status, and then now you would see that time available on the billing screen. Or you can click here to change it back to time, which is what you would need to do if you needed to make any changes. If you made a mistake and needed to edit it, you'd have to change it back to time status. If you see one that's in H like this, H status, that's history. That means it's actually been whipped and billed already. So you've already billed your client. It changes to H for history to let you see that here. And you'll notice some of them, like this one here, will sometimes have a WF on the side. That means it's attached to a workflow event or workflow item. So what I mean by that is if you're over here on the workflow screen on the employee calendar, and for example, if you just click on this one, and of course there's videos in here that explain this, but if I wanted to add time directly from this task that I'm working on, I can click here and add the time. And when I submit that time or save it, it would then show up on the time entry screen with the WF like you see here. Our next column, we have our employee column. So it's the employee that entered this time. I'm logged in as Donna White. So that's why you're seeing her name here. We have the date of the time entry, start and stop time. This will be put in automatically if you use the timer up here, or you can enter it manually. If you're somebody who likes to let your boss know, or maybe even for your own purposes, you like to keep track of the specific times that you worked for certain clients, you can enter it manually. Like you can see here, I have 10 a.m. to 12:39 p.m. I worked for Audio King doing their monthly accounting. I put that in manually. That's an option. You can do that if you want to, and if you do that, it actually will calculate the time for you automatically that you see over here. You can see it's 2 hours and 39 minutes. I did not have to put that in there. It just came up with that because of the time that I entered right here. But you can see that these ones, like this one says 12:29 to 12:29, 12:28 to 12:28. It doesn't mean that I worked less than a minute. If I scroll over here, you can see this one's for 3 hours, this one's for 2 hours. It just means that I did not put in the specific start and stop time in here. Instead, what I did was I just put in that I worked 3 hours doing the monthly accounting for Wigwell Industries and submitted it that way without the specific time entered in there. So that's an option that you have there as well. Client code, client sort name, those will be entered automatically once you choose your client. And you'll notice that when you click on the new time button to start a new time entry, the first thing you have to do is choose your client. So once you've chosen your client, you've entered all this information and saved it, you'll see the client code and sort name pop up here. And I'll show you that in just a little while when I show you a time entry. The engagement column, engagements are like special projects that you do for a client that they like to be billed separately from the other work that you do for them. None of these are marked as an engagement, but you have that option when you're entering time. And to set up an engagement or establish one, you do that on the client property screen for your client. There's a tab called engagements and you just set it up in there. For all of these, you will need to choose a work code, and you have options in here as well. So there are regular chargeable work codes like this one that says monthly accounting, audit planning. These are charged to your client, just regular chargeable work codes. We also have what's called non-chargeable work codes. If I click on here, I just want to show you. If I scroll down, for example, you can see sick time says non-chargeable, meetings non-chargeable. So those would not be able to be charged to a client. Those would have to be charged to a non-chargeable client. And you should always have at least one non-chargeable client in your database. That way your employees can choose that client. Like we have one that's just called Office. So if I choose Office in here, then I know I need to choose a non-chargeable work code. So maybe I was in a meeting for 3 hours and I want to make sure I'm keeping track of that. Or I was in training, something like that. I would choose that in here. In addition to chargeable and non-chargeable, you'll also see expense work codes. If I come all the way down here to the bottom, see these EXP, like the courier fee, software purchase. So these are charged to a client, but they're not the normal standard hours that you're charging to a client. These are expense units. And so here, move over. So this column, we have hours, minutes, and that's all it is. It's really the hours and minutes that you spend working for this client or in the meeting if you're doing something non-chargeable, something like that. And then just keep in mind that for hours, if you wanted to put like 3 hours, you'd have to put 3.00. If you put in just 3 and clicked out of that field, it would mark it as 3 minutes. And obviously you probably don't want to do that. So just keep that in mind. And then hours units, these are useful for when you're doing expenses like courier fees or mileage. Maybe you want to put in 2 miles. That's what you'd mark in here. The amount is automatically calculated based on your employee's rate, the work code that you choose, and the hours or time that you spend working on it. Description is optional. You don't have to put a description in, but it's useful, especially later on when you're doing your invoicing. There comes a point where you get to the edit paragraph screen where you actually put in the wording that will be on the invoice and you have to choose wording to put on there. You can type it in manually, or there are a few options for how to choose the wording. But if you have a description in here, so if you put in like a sentence that could go on the invoice based on what kind of work you did here, you'll be able to choose that later on the invoice screen. So it could be helpful later. Bank hours, you can see these all say no, but you have the option when you're entering time to click to mark it as bank hours. Because I clicked on this one to show you non-chargeable and expense hours and all that, it opened it up to edit. So I just need to save it again. So click the save button there. And that's going over all the columns for you. The buttons that we have up top, we have the new time button. This opens up a new time entry if I click on it, and I'll show you that in just a second. We have our actions drop down that I mentioned before, and each of those has its own instructional video. We have the filter, of course, that helps you narrow down the information that you have on here, and you have an advanced filter, and there's a video there that explains that for you. All employees, if you have the rights or permissions set up for this, you can turn on all employees and you can actually see all the employees' time entries instead of just your own. So that's good for managers to be able to use and check everybody's time entries and stuff like that. This button here will just open up a report based on what you see here on the screen, so it'll look something like this. This, if you hover over it, will show you our keyboard shortcuts or hotkeys. These are very useful if you enter time a lot and you want to be able to do it quickly. You can learn these. You can always come back here and just hover over it. I'm not going to go over all these buttons here because these are covered on most of the videos in TPS Cloud Access. They're definitely covered over in the time entry main overview video. So at this point, let me show you quickly how to do a time entry. And of course, you can use the timer up here. There's a video in here that explains that. I'm just going to do it manually, and I'm going to do it very quickly because as you can see, there is a new time video. But for the sake of this video, if you click on new time, it will open up a new time entry. You can see that the client dropdown appears right away. So you have to choose a client. I'm going to go ahead and choose my client here. I can put in that start and stop time very specifically if I want to, or just leave it alone. I'll leave it alone for now. You can see we start out in time status. Client code and sort name will fill out automatically towards the end of this. I can put in an engagement if I want to. If I click, it shows me the engagements available. Work code, I have to choose a work code. I'm just going to grab one right here and do compilation reporting. Hours and minutes, this is what I was telling you before. Don't put just 2. For 2 hours, put 2.0 at least. And then when you click out of it, you can see it's 2 hours. Fills out the units for you automatically. The amount is calculated automatically. Then I can put in a description if I want to. Again, remember that will show up on the invoicing screen and can be useful later. I can mark it as bank hours here, and then I click save. That's how easy doing a time entry is. When I'm ready to bill that, I need to change it to WIP. And it's as easy as just clicking on the T, changing it to W. And then now if I were to go look up this client on the billing screen, that time would be included in the amount that can be billed. If I need to make a change to it, I can click on it to change it back to time status because things can only be edited in the time status. So maybe I want to put in this specific time. I can now do that. Maybe I need to change the work code. I made a mistake and the work code is not compilation reporting. Maybe it's other compilation. So I click on that one and then save it. So we've got that one here. TPS is also set up with alerts to let you know when you're about to do something you shouldn't. It's pretty cool. Let me show you what I mean. So let's do a new time entry, and I'm going to choose my client, Hendricks and Hollis. As soon as I choose Hendricks and Hollis, you can see I get this kind of alert over here, this icon. It's like a hazard icon. It's telling me this client is on hold. All I have to do is hover over it and I get that message. This client is on hold. So it's TPS Cloud Access basically saying, hey, heads up, you're not even working with Hendricks and Hollis. They're on hold. So if I wanted to change this, let's say that we are working with them again and no one updated it, I would have to go over to clients, to the client screen, find Hendricks and Hollis, go into the client properties and change them back to an active client. But let's say that they are on hold. I made a mistake and I want to actually enter time for Bayside Restaurant. As soon as I put Bayside Restaurant, awesome. That alert disappeared. I can go on entering time for them. But let me show you something else. Let's say that I try to use a non-chargeable work code. So for example, training on a chargeable client. As soon as I choose that, if I look over here again, there's that icon again. If I hover over it, it says non-chargeable work code assigned to a chargeable client. And that would have worked the other way around too. So if I would have tried to apply a chargeable work code to a non-chargeable client, like remember I told you I have that office client that's just for non-chargeable work codes. If I tried to apply a chargeable work code to my office client, I would get an error with a similar message telling me that I'm doing it wrong. So, okay, let's go ahead and change this to just a regular chargeable work code. You can see that alert went away. But there's another alert that we can get here that's pretty cool. Over in the client properties, you can set an exposure limit for your clients. So that's WIP plus AR. It's basically how much you will allow them to accrue before you stop working with them. And that's useful, especially when you have a newer client that you're not sure if you trust them. You want to make sure they're going to pay their bills. So maybe you set like $1,000 exposure limit. So what would happen in that case is I'm going to go ahead and change this to a client that I know has an exposure limit. So Grand Illustrated. If I choose Grand Illustrated, you can see I get that alert. So it says the exposure limit for this client is $1,000. Total whip and AR is $1,400 and basically will be even more than that if I continue to go on with this. It's not going to stop me from entering time, but it's just letting me know, like, hey, heads up, you're going over your exposure limit. You might want to think about what you're about to do. And that's all really. It's going to let you keep doing it, but it's helpful enough to kind of give you that warning. So if you're a manager and you're using that all employee option here, or you're just kind of walking around the office and checking out everybody's time entries, and you see these, make sure you hover over them and find out what's going on, what needs to be changed, what is TPS Cloud Access trying to warn you about, and make those changes. And I think that pretty much covers it for the time entry grid. Just make sure you watch all the other videos on this screen so you can get familiar with those features. Thank you for watching.